What am I passionate about?
Is it too late to follow my dreams?
How can I get to where I want to be faster?
These are some of the questions young adults are asking. To find the answers, we set out around the world to meet the individuals who are making a difference. These are their stories. These are your shortcuts.
Laura McKinney here with Nathalie Molina Nino. So Nathalie, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Sure. First of all, thank you. I am a recovering tech entrepreneur. I spent 15 years in that world, and I decided the next chapter of my life was going to be about paying it forward. I co-founded a center for women entrepreneurs, and after a few years of working exclusively with women entrepreneurs, it occurred to me that the thing that is holding women back is really not a lack of education as much as it's a lack of money. Really simple. So now I'm a full-time investor.
So tell me a little bit about your center that you have created for women.
Sure. It's the Center for Women Entrepreneurs at Columbia University that sits inside of Barnard College, the women's college. Mm-hmm. So I went from being the only woman in the room, sometimes the only woman in the building, mm-hmm. to being like in feminist Mecca, and working only with women. Mm-hmm. And it's a center that has developed programs for entrepreneurs that are 15 years old all the way up to in their 50s and 60s and beyond. Mm-hmm. The idea was to level the playing field for women entrepreneurs and provide a whole series of programs, from a summer camp for high school girls to we even did some advocacy work around women over the age of 50 who, by the way, are twice as likely to be successful as entrepreneurs, but you would never know that because they're not on the covers of magazines, they're not getting the investments. But so we did work like that, basically all in the service of women entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So why women? What was that calling for you? Why was that so important to focus on women?
That's a great question, because I care about the environment, I care about many things. Mm-hmm. For me, it was guilt. I was in tech for 15 years, and what was hard for me is I realized that I had left the industry that I'd worked in for 15 years no better than I'd found it. Here I was getting this next generation of brilliant women asking me to help them go back into that world, and it felt like feeding them to the lion's den. Mm. We have half as many women graduating as engineers as we did when I was graduating in engineering. And so the numbers are worse, the environment is worse. If the Me Too movement has taught us anything, the culture is just as toxic, if not more. And I felt guilty. And it occurred to me that in my haste to be successful, I had just put my head down and just focused on thriving in my career and making sure that my businesses were successful, but I wasn't an activist. I can either be a successful entrepreneur or I can be an activist. I thought I had to choose, and I didn't. Mm-hmm. So for me, the focus on women is in large part, it's making it right, mm-hmm. and sort of going back and fixing something that I didn't help right, kind of right the ship. Yeah. Mentorship, sponsorship, which is more active, is important, but I also think that alliances are the most important thing. So if I think of how I functioned, for example, in a male-dominated environment and how I continue to function today, I went from tech to finance. I went from bad to worse when it comes to culture, right? Alliances are the one thing that if I were to go back to 25-year-old me, I would have emphasized, right? Because we suffered in silence, we suffered quietly. I believed I was the only one experiencing some of the things that I was experiencing. But if I had made a point to build alliances, if I had found other women either in my age or my sector or in my environment and built alliances, there's not just power in numbers, there's confidence in numbers. And so I think mentorship is important, but alliances above all, people that are in the trenches with you, that are in the same industry, that are sort of, potentially able to help you move the needle, because now it's, it's a few of you. The other thing that happens with alliances is businesses get created, mm-hmm. right? Things get built. Mm-hmm. And I'm a big believer, the reason I care about entrepreneurship, it's not that I don't care about corporate, it's not that I don't read books like Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, but I don't have a lot of faith in our ability to turn Google into a different business, or Procter & Gamble into a different business, or Uber into a different business. Once a company gets to a certain critical mass, the footprint is built, right? And to turn that ship around and to shift the culture is really hard. So I would rather be in the business of creating the next woman-led Uber, the next woman-led Procter & Gamble, and the next woman-led Google.
Yeah.
You must remember when those voices pop in your head that you are the source of your own supply. No one else's. Right? Whatever you did, you can do it again. Whatever goodness that you've built ultimately came from you, and you can do it again, right? And so we ended up coming up with this idea of principled leadership. We talked about being discerning, and principled leadership ended up being the term that we stuck with, because to me, principled leadership means more than just I'm a leader, I'm up at the podium, I'm visible. It means making the tough decisions. It means making the unpopular decisions. It means being discerning and being willing to take the heat when everyone disagrees with you, but you know this is the decision that needs to be made. So being a principled leader and being a principled leader that makes tough decisions and doesn't shy away from controversy has become really critical.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess my last question to you for now would be, to finish this sentence, I am most looking forward to.
It won't work on print, but it'll work on video. I'm most looking forward to the day that people like you are running the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So this is your new book,
Yes.
LeapFrog. Tell us a little bit about it. What made you want to write it? What is it about?
Sure. I will say it wasn't the motivation for writing it, but now it's like a core reason that I'm excited about it is as an investor with a very specific thesis, I say no 99.9% of the time, right? And I don't even focus on women entrepreneurs. I focus on companies that benefit women. And so I focus on companies that economically benefit women, which means anybody could found it, right? What that means, though, is that there are millions of women today that I can't support. And so I wanted to give them a resource, something that they could use to help grow their businesses, because the majority of women-owned businesses are stuck at less than the $1 million revenue mark. They don't need to be taught to be entrepreneurial. They just need to be taught how to grow their businesses and succeed. Women, especially women of color, are taught that you've got to follow the rules, you've got to do everything exactly correctly, you've got to get perfect grades, you've got to get the perfect internship. And that's what gets you in the great schools, and that's what gets you maybe the great jobs. But once you get there, it's not about following the rules anymore. And anybody with power, influence, and capital today got there because they took shortcuts. Yeah. Whether it's a trust fund, whether it's they got in not because of their SAT scores, but because of their last name, or like in the case of the current sitting president, you know, got daddy to write them a $2 million check to start their first business. I mean, these are all shortcuts. And so instead of railing against people taking shortcuts, I would much rather arm women with our own. What I'm really hoping happens with this book is I'm hoping to see another 50, right? I'm hoping to see 51, 52, 53. I want to hear other people's hacks, especially women's hacks, for how they got from point A to point B without a trust fund, without the connections, without the fancy schools. But that's what I want to know.